There are certain moments in life that cut deeper than any visible wound. Moments where, no matter how much respect you offer, no matter how much care and attention you extend, the person across from you simply looks through you. They grow so accustomed to your presence that they begin taking you entirely for granted. They underestimate your worth. They assume that no matter how neglected you feel, you will remain quietly in your corner, waiting indefinitely for whatever small scraps of attention they decide to give. This is one of the most damaging misconceptions a person can hold about another. And it is precisely the kind of mistake that eventually costs them everything, often when it is already too late to reverse the damage. What you're about to discover today draws its roots from two of the most powerful traditions in human wisdom: the unshakable principles of Stoic philosophy and the depth psychology of Carl Jung. Together, these 10 behaviors will awaken something very specific in the person who has been taking you for granted: the fear of losing you, the sensation of losing control, and a deep, unavoidable regret that settles into the quiet spaces of their mind. But before we begin, I want to be absolutely clear. Nothing shared here is about revenge. Nothing here is a recipe for cheap emotional manipulation or games designed to hurt someone else. This is entirely about reclaiming control of your own life, strengthening your dignity, and doing what Jung described as integrating with your true self, becoming whole again on your own terms, free from the need for external approval. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. If this message speaks to something real inside you, stay with it, because what comes next may genuinely change the way you see yourself and the people around you. It has the power to shift how you respond to neglect, how you protect your peace, and how you choose to walk through the world. Now, if you're ready, let's begin. Behavior 10. Practice strategic silence. Very few behaviors carry the kind of power that silence does, especially when used consciously and with full intention. When someone treats you carelessly, when they dismiss or ignore you, their expectation is simple. They expect a reaction. They expect you to defend yourself, to ask why they acted that way, perhaps even to reach out for a small piece of their attention so the dynamic can continue as it always has. But when you respond with silence, something fascinating occurs. That person loses control of the narrative entirely. The usual script they rely on is suddenly interrupted, and they are left without the responses they have come to expect. In Stoic philosophy, silence is never submission. It is sovereignty. It is complete authority over oneself. As Epictetus observed, it is impossible for a person to truly learn what they already believe they know. When you choose silence in the face of disrespect, you communicate something profound without uttering a single word. I do not align myself with this low-frequency energy, and I am fully capable of moving forward without your approval or your presence. Recall Jung's concept of the shadow. When you remain silent, the other person is left alone with their own darkness, not responding to hollow messages, not attempting to explain your absence to someone who never valued your presence, refusing to nourish one-sided conversations. All of these choices speak louder than any argument ever could. They declare that your inner peace is worth infinitely more than any toxic presence in your life. And what happens to the person who has been taking you for granted? A quiet unease begins to stir inside them. Seeds of doubt take root and slowly grow. Why didn't they respond? Why did they simply disappear? Have they found something better? What are they doing now, retreating into their own world without needing me? These questions begin consuming the ego of someone accustomed to receiving your time and care, without cost or effort. Silence transforms into a mirror, and not everyone has the courage to look honestly at their own reflection. Strategic silence is never about placing distance to manipulate. It is about placing distance to protect yourself, and in that protection, you become freer. And precisely because of that freedom, you become more valuable, not in their eyes alone, but in your own. Behavior 9. Stop explaining yourself to those who have no desire to understand you. One of the most exhausting emotional traps is the compulsion to convince others of your own worth, over-explaining every choice, justifying every decision, feeling obligated to defend every step you take, as if your life requires constant permission. But ancient wisdom is unambiguous. Never exhaust your energy on someone who has already decided not to see you clearly. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If change is possible, make it. If it isn't, accept it. But never wear yourself down in the process." When you stop explaining yourself to someone who never valued your perspective, you send them a message requiring no words. I do not need your approval. This posture disarms them completely. The person accustomed to seeing you eager to please, always ready to justify and accommodate, suddenly asks a question they weren't prepared for. What changed? Why are they no longer trying so hard? And here is the beauty of this approach. It requires no aggression whatsoever, only resolve. If someone criticizes you without foundation, don't engage in the argument. Simply offer a calm smile and continue on your path. If they question your decisions, don't attempt to persuade them. Keep moving forward with quiet confidence, knowing that your choices belong to you alone. Non-reaction is often far more powerful than 1,000 well-reasoned arguments. Those who undervalue you frequently count on your tendency to respond with vulnerability, to become defensive, to apologize for things you never did wrong. But when you stop offering explanations, you demonstrate something deeply powerful. You no longer require someone else's gaze to feel complete, and that unsettles them in ways they didn't anticipate and cannot easily control. People recognize when you are genuinely at peace with your own choices. That recognition makes them think. It can even make them feel rejected, not because you said a single harsh word, but because the quiet maturity of your posture echoes louder than any confrontation ever could. There is no logic in explaining your value to someone who has chosen not to see it. You have nothing to prove. You simply have a whole and integrated life to live, one that no longer bends itself to fit someone else's limited vision of you. Behavior 8. Live with purpose and redirect your focus entirely toward yourself. Nothing surprises the person who has undervalued you quite like watching you flourish without them. When you redirect your attention and energy toward your own goals, your own projects, and your personal growth, you send a message that needs no translation. I am enough on my own. And this single realization demolishes the ego of someone who believed your happiness was somehow dependent on their presence or approval. This is precisely what Jung described as the individuation process, finding your own center and learning to stand firmly within it. What is within your control is your time, your energy, and your attention. Instead of spending those precious resources trying to satisfy someone who doesn't truly value you, invest them in yourself. Read more, care for your health, develop new skills, discover new environments and new possibilities. Prove to yourself, through consistent action, not words, that life not only continues without someone who failed to appreciate you, but that it can be genuinely extraordinary and full of meaning. This is where the other person's helplessness begins. They start noticing you aren't simply walking away. You are rising. While they were placing you in the background of their life, you were learning to place yourself in the front row of your own. The contrast becomes impossible to ignore. Those who once overlooked you begin witnessing you shine quietly, without drama, without pleading, simply living with intention. And this posture is more powerful than any speech, because it proves you aren't pretending to move on. You are actually moving on, and the results are visible. Living with purpose also creates a natural shield against toxic connections. When you align with your own mission, peace becomes your highest priority, and anyone attempting to pull you downward naturally gets left behind. Their old tactics lose their grip because your focus has shifted to something far more important than their approval. Behavior 7. Draw your boundaries without guilt. One of the most transformative actions you can take in your own life is learning to say no. No to those who only appear when they need something from you. No to those who disregard your emotions, but still expect you to always be available. No to those who treat your patience as an unlimited resource they never have to earn or respect. This is not simply a word, it is a matter of self-discipline. It is the power to act from reason and genuine self-respect, not from guilt or the fear of disappointing others. Those who fail to value you frequently rely on your difficulty with boundaries. They have grown comfortable with your always open door, your endless patience, your consistent availability. But when you begin drawing clear and non-negotiable lines, reality shifts. And for them, that shift is deeply unsettling because the old pattern no longer works. As Marcus Aurelius observed, you have power over your own mind, not over external events. Setting boundaries is exactly this, focusing on what you can genuinely control, your decisions, your presence, your time, and protecting those things with unwavering conviction. When someone attempts to invade your emotional space through rudeness, disrespect, or indifference, don't attempt to justify yourself. Simply withdraw. When they try to make you feel guilty for prioritizing your own peace, remain calm and hold your ground. When they demand your attention while offering nothing of substance in return, stay silent and walk away without apology. This posture creates a devastating effect on those accustomed to manipulating you emotionally because their tactics no longer function. Guilt no longer paralyzes you. You become free, and that freedom terrifies those who once held control over you because they can feel the balance of power changing. Real self-respect is knowing when enough is enough. By protecting your peace, you teach people how they are permitted to treat you. And if they refuse to learn, they are about to lose the privilege of being close to you entirely. The choice becomes theirs, and the consequences become clear. Behavior 6. Treat them with courtesy, but maintain your distance. This is one of the most disorienting and simultaneously most dignified responses available to you. You continue being polite, composed, and calm, but you close the doors to emotional access. You no longer allow closeness or easy familiarity. The message is unmistakable. I have grown, and there is no longer a place for you in the deeper parts of my world. Ancient wisdom consistently advises against becoming reactive or bitter. Anger and the desire for revenge enslave us far more than they liberate us. Instead, we are called to cultivate virtue and self-mastery. Responding to someone who looks down on you with genuine respect, while simultaneously maintaining the distance required to protect your peace, is one of the greatest demonstrations of character available to any human being. This posture both confuses and deeply unsettles the person who undervalued you, because they typically anticipate one of two reactions. Either you beg to be noticed, or you explode with anger. But when you offer them a calm greeting, carry no resentment, and simply continue on your path with quiet dignity. They are left completely disarmed and without a clear way to respond. It's as though you are saying without words, "I carry no hatred toward you, but you no longer have access to my world, my energy, or my trust." This refinement is extraordinarily powerful. It communicates maturity. It signals that you are fully conscious of who deserves your energy and who does not. Over time, that person begins to understand the full weight of what they have lost. Not merely your physical presence, but your attention, your warmth, your trust, and the unique quality of connection you once offered. And that realization quietly consumes them from within, because distant courtesy is far heavier to carry than open hostility. This behavior demonstrates that you don't need to become ruthless to continue your journey. You simply need to grow. You don't need to enter emotional battles. Sometimes the only thing required is to continue walking forward with your dignity fully intact. And the person who witnesses this will be shaken. And perhaps for the first time, they will begin to truly understand the value you always carried and the quiet strength it took to walk away with grace. Behavior 5. Remain unshakable in the face of criticism. One of the most frequently used weapons of those who undervalue you is empty criticism. Most of the time, people who cannot confront you directly attempt instead to erode your confidence, pointing to flaws or mistakes that don't truly exist, hoping to destabilize the ground you stand on and pull you back into their orbit. What they don't understand is this: when you have genuinely internalized these principles, you develop a natural immunity to their words. As Epictetus observed, we are not disturbed by events themselves, but by the judgments we place upon them. When you remain unshakable in the face of criticism, you begin to recognize that the problem resides in the one criticizing, not in your response to them. And as Jung himself noted, everything that irritates us about others can lead us toward a deeper understanding of ourselves. But in this particular situation, the dynamic is reversed. Their criticism is a projection of their own internal conflict, a reflection of their own unresolved battles, not a truthful commentary on who you are or what you are worth. Those who undervalue you may attempt to strike you with harsh words, but what they never anticipate is your ability to remain calm, centered, and entirely at peace. Watching their words produce not even the smallest visible effect is something they are utterly unprepared for. The person who once effortlessly destabilized you now finds themselves confused and without leverage. Their usual tools have stopped working. When you stop reacting to criticism, it is not because you have become indifferent. It is because you have learned to see words as simply words, temporary sounds that hold only the power you choose to give them. You reclaim control. There is no longer room for emotional manipulation or deliberate attempts to diminish you. Your identity now rests on far more solid ground than the shifting opinions of others. When you make the decision to no longer allow criticism to penetrate your emotional state, the criticism itself loses all power. The person who has been dismissing you realizes that nothing they say can disturb your equilibrium, and in that moment, they lose all control over the dynamic between you. Then they begin asking themselves, why isn't there any reaction? And that single question drives them toward a helplessness they never saw coming and do not know how to resolve. Real freedom lives in the mastery of your own responses. When you become unshakable, you are not only protected from external criticism, you become stronger internally as well. Because you know with absolute certainty that your peace belongs only to you, not to the words of those who never truly saw your worth. Behavior 4. Protect your dignity, even when no one is watching. One of the most profound lessons available to any human being is this: your dignity does not depend on whether others are present or absent. It depends entirely on how you treat yourself in every situation, regardless of who is or isn't watching. True dignity is practiced in the quiet moments as much as in the public ones. When someone fails to value you, one of the most damaging responses you can choose is to diminish yourself in an attempt to win their attention, or to remain visibly broken so they feel the weight of what they've done. But genuine wisdom teaches something far more powerful. Protect your honor, even in complete solitude. As Seneca once wrote, a person discovers their greatest strength in moments of aloneness. Protecting your dignity in the face of being dismissed or overlooked is an act of profound emotional self-sufficiency. You do not need anyone's approval to confirm who you are. You do not need someone else to validate your existence. Your worth flows from your character and your posture, not from the applause of those standing outside your life. When you are able to stand tall even when no one is watching, when you maintain your composure in the depths of solitude, you broadcast a quiet but unmistakable signal of strength. This is precisely the inner wholeness Jung spoke of. And when the person who undervalued you senses this, they are genuinely shaken. How do they keep going? How can they stand that firmly without my attention, without my presence, without needing me to hold them up? This internal strength is something no one can take from you. Sometimes those who diminish you expect you to fall apart, to need their validation in order to move forward. But when you preserve your wholeness without depending on anyone's gaze, the other person feels the loss deeply. And very often that feeling of loss is the key to awakening the regret in someone who never knew how to give you the value you deserved while they still had the chance. In the end, you emerge stronger, because real power is the capacity to live according to your own principles, regardless of what others think or do. And by protecting your dignity in solitude, you reinforce that power with every single day that passes. Those who undervalued you may come to understand far too late, but what they lost was never just a physical connection. They lost the chance to be close to someone genuinely authentic, genuinely whole, and genuinely powerful, someone who no longer needed their recognition to stand tall. Behavior 3. Don't be afraid to walk away without explanation. Most of the time, those who have failed to value you expect a warning before you leave. They expect you to explain yourself, to tell them why you're pulling away, or to offer them one final chance to correct the imbalance between you. But real strength comes from the ability to move forward without feeling obligated to provide justifications or explanations to anyone who has already shown they cannot meet you with reciprocity. One of the most fundamental principles of a meaningful life is accepting impermanence. Nothing lasts forever, including relationships. If someone has chosen not to value you, they have already emotionally departed long before any physical distance appears. Perhaps what you need to recognize is this departure before it transforms into a wound that never fully closes and continues to drain your energy. Rather than waiting for the perfect moment to leave or carrying the weight of feeling like you owe someone an explanation, your approach should be simple and clean. If the other person consistently fails to show up for you, accept that this connection has an expiration date and walk away without noise, without looking back, without offering a speech designed to make them understand. This is liberating in a way that is difficult to fully describe until you experience it. When you cut ties without factoring in their reaction, without seeking their permission, you demonstrate an extraordinary level of confidence. The unshakable belief that you are capable of being content and whole, entirely on your own. And this by itself creates a psychological impact on the other person that no argument or confrontation ever could. The person who undervalued you begins asking questions they were never prepared to face. Why didn't they ask for my permission? Why didn't they defend themselves? Why did they leave so quietly, as if my presence no longer mattered? This posture is not vengeful. It is simply the conscious choice to prioritize your own well-being over maintaining a connection that was never truly reciprocal. Life is far too brief to spend on relationships that neither support your growth nor contribute to your inner peace. And when you genuinely recognize this, the person who failed to appreciate you feels the weight of what they lost. Watching you refuse to return, watching you move forward with quiet certainty, very often pushes them toward a desperation they never anticipated and do not know how to ease. Behavior 2. Honor your own achievements without waiting for recognition. One of the deepest traps a person falls into when someone doesn't value them is waiting for that specific person to acknowledge their victories and their growth. But real fulfillment has nothing to do with being seen or applauded by those who have already chosen not to see you. It comes from the knowledge, quiet and unshakable, that you gave everything you had, regardless of whether anyone witnessed it. When you accomplish something meaningful and consciously choose not to wait for recognition, you liberate yourself from the need for external validation entirely. This is not arrogance. This is not indifference. This is the full awareness that your journey and your achievements carry inherent worth, not because someone else confirmed them, but because they are genuinely yours and were earned through your own effort and resilience. Those who undervalue you tend to ignore your progress when you reach something significant. They expect you to seek their acknowledgement or to feel incomplete without their support. But when you move through your victories as though they are already sufficient, because they are, you create a distance that forces the other person to ask a question they cannot easily answer. Why don't they need my validation anymore? Why does their success no longer seem to require my approval? The deeper beauty in all of this is something Jung understood with great clarity. When you align with your own authentic self, you no longer require masks or applause. Your worth is not determined by what others think of you. Your peace is not contingent on their response. This creates a visible and deeply compelling stillness that others can sense, even if they cannot fully explain it. When the people around you begin to recognize that you neither need them to feel happy nor to feel successful, it makes them genuinely reflect. And those who undervalued you frequently find themselves in an uncomfortable and unfamiliar position, realizing that their presence or absence no longer shapes the direction of your life the way it once did. This quiet empowerment creates something remarkable, achieving something and simply continuing forward without waiting for the applause of those who underestimated you opens a space where the people who truly matter recognize your value effortlessly, without performance, through nothing more than your consistent and grounded actions. The ones who were never meant to see you clearly are left with only the echo of what they failed to appreciate. Behavior 1. Become emotionally self-sufficient. The most powerful stance you can adopt towards someone who has failed to value you is emotional self-sufficiency. This means that your sense of worth, your sense of aliveness, your sense that your life genuinely matters. None of these things depend on the approval, the attention, or the affection of another person. You are enough entirely on your own, and this inner recognition is one of the most profound sources of strength available to any human being. As Epictetus taught, happiness depends on us alone, not on others. When you truly absorb this principle, you begin to understand that the only person genuinely capable of affecting your emotional state is you. Others may attempt to destabilize you. They may try to make you doubt yourself, to make you feel small, to make you question whether you deserve better. But the power to choose how you feel, that power has always resided within you. It was never theirs to take, and it never will be. When you become emotionally self-sufficient, you develop a natural and effortless shield against dismissal and indifference. The person who undervalued you begins to notice that their attempts to make you feel inferior no longer produce any visible result. Their words land without impact. Their indifference no longer pulls you off course. You are no longer at the mercy of their behavior. You are already whole. You are already complete. And that completeness is something they can no longer disrupt. But emotional self-sufficiency is not about building walls or closing yourself off from the world. It is not isolation disguised as strength. It is the genuine recognition that the compassion, the respect, and the validation you have been searching for externally, you are fully capable of providing those things to yourself, consistently and without conditions. This creates a remarkable internal power, because you are no longer living according to the expectations or the evaluations of those around you. You are living according to your own values, your own standards, your own deeply considered sense of what a meaningful life looks like. And when you embody this, when you genuinely carry it in the way you move, the way you speak, the way you occupy a room, the person who has been taking you for granted begins to feel something shift beneath them. They sense the loss of control. They realize that the emotional, you see through the pattern now, and you have chosen yourself instead. That choice changes everything. This authentic posture of self-sufficiency is very often the precise thing that finally drives the person who undervalued you toward genuine desperation. Because what they are confronting is not simply your absence. They are confronting the irreversible loss of influence over your emotional world. And that is a loss that cannot be undone through charm or timing or a well-crafted apology offered too late. The moment you stopped needing them to feel whole, everything changed. Jung spoke about this with remarkable depth. When you align with your own self, when you complete the individuation process and stand firmly in the fullness of who you are, the masks fall away. The performance ends. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone. And paradoxically, it is precisely at this moment that those who once dismissed you begin to see your value with a clarity they never managed before. But by then, the terms have fundamentally changed, because you are no longer the person who will quietly wait in the corner, hoping to be chosen. You are the person who has already made the most important choice available. You chose yourself, fully and without hesitation. So here is what these 10 behaviors, drawn from the ancient wisdom of Stoic philosophy and the profound depths of Jungian psychology, ultimately reveal. The person who dismissed you, who overlooked you, who took your presence entirely for granted, they were never truly responding to who you are. They were responding to the version of you that had not yet fully claimed its own power. Strategic silence, refusing to over-explain, living with genuine purpose, drawing boundaries without guilt, treating others with courtesy while protecting your emotional access, remaining unshakable in the face of criticism, preserving your dignity in solitude, walking away without explanation, honoring your achievements without waiting for applause, and above all, becoming emotionally self-sufficient. Each of these behaviors is not a tactic designed to wound. Each one is a declaration that you understand your own worth, that you have stopped outsourcing your sense of value to people who were never equipped to honor it, that you have chosen consciously and completely to become the kind of person whose presence is a privilege, not a given. And here is the profound truth that sits at the heart of all of this. The regret they will eventually feel, that deep, unavoidable recognition of what they lost, will not come from anything dramatic you said or did. It will come from watching you become more fully yourself, quietly, consistently, without looking back, and without needing them to complete the picture. That is the kind of transformation that cannot be argued with, cannot be dismissed, and cannot be forgotten. It lingers because it is real. As Jung once reminded us, the most important journey any person can take is the journey inward. Everything you have been searching for in the eyes of someone who failed to see you, it was always within you. It has always been within you. And now, at last, you are returning to it with open eyes and steady steps. The most powerful response to being undervalued is never revenge. It is becoming so completely, so authentically, so unapologetically yourself that those who once overlooked you are left with nothing but the weight of their own regret, and the quiet knowledge that they let something rare slip away. The journey back to yourself begins now.